Hello, everybody, and welcome to RoomTube. Today, I am with Kate Codrington, who is a massage therapist, yoga teacher, and also a biodynamic therapist for women going through all kinds of women's health issues and life events. So that includes periods, fertility, pregnancy, and menopause. She's also completed the Women's Quest apprenticeship with Alexandra Pope. And today we're going to be talking about menopause and also some of the workshops she runs under the Love Your Belly workshop. So, Kate, hello and welcome.
Hello, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So today we're going to talk about menopause.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is a bit of a hot subject, particularly towards the end of last year. People were suddenly aware that menopause happens, that all the side effects sometimes can be avoided, or we can reduce the risk of them occurring, and that it is okay to go through the menopause and that we don't have to medicate our way through it, which is wonderful. So what drew you to this area?
Well, it was I noticed all this rise in information last year. It was great.
It was
to hear people actually talking about it. I mean, it was just such a relief, because previously it's been such a kind of quiet, kind of don't mention it, kind of very taboo almost. And that's really what got me into it, because I'm menopausal, and I was like, a bit like Goofy wandering along going, oh, okay, I've done motherhood, hello menopause, what's this about then, and everybody was going, oh, shh, don't talk about it. And I was, of course, that got my curiosity, because I'm interested in my well-being and in what happens and unpacking it all.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the taboo-ness of it that got me into, and here I was in that place, and I needed to know about it.
I agree 100%, and it's amazing that half the population is going to go through this at some point, and it can go over a period of 10 years roughly in some women.
Can do, yeah.
And it's either joked about or just swept under the carpet.
I know. And it is an amazing time. I think that if there's one thing that I would like to say about it, if I could only say one thing, it would be that it is amazing transformational time.
I'm so glad that you said that. Because there are so many people, obviously I've got a little while to go before I get there, but you just only hear the horror stories, and it shouldn't be anything that you fear going into, because that's just going to make your experience of it so much different to if you're going into something and looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, it's a transformational process. So it takes you from your kind of workaday compromised self. So you're compromised maybe in your work, possibly you're probably with a family or caring or in doing lots of different roles, and you're taken through this transformation from coming to caring for others through an inward process to caring for yourself, and to really coming through that into a place where you are able to express your, your calling, your purpose in life, even if that purpose is to stare out the window and look at the flowers.
That's a wonderful purpose.
It is.
It is. I've got lots of potted plants on my windowsill for that reason.
Yeah. So coming from a place where you're, doing everything, and you're very busy, and you're, trying to work your career or create a family, or looking after a family, or whatever it is, going to a place where you are nourishing your heart's desire is going to be a painful process. Yes. Unless you are very skilled at letting everything go, which most people know. I'm not. Most of us aren't.
Yeah. Most of us are too guilty of caring too much more about other people.
Exactly.
And I hear that a lot recently over Christmas, with people being okay with spending a small fortune on a present for someone else who they care about, but not the same amount on something that's pretty essential for themselves. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a big thing Okay, so you wrote an amazing blog post on a roadmap through menopause. Could you talk us through that at an overall level? Just give us a flavour of what that is.
Sure. Well, the blog that you refer to, and thank you for the compliment, the work, the 5 Chambers of Menopause, and yes, there are 5. This work was created by Alexandra Pope, my teacher, and she's beautifully described, very poetically described, the transformation that takes place through menopause, and it's the same transformation. You'll recognise it. It's the same transformation that takes place through any change in our lives, through pregnancy, through any change comes through. So you're bobbing along quite nicely. You're probably in your 40s, maybe, hopefully in your 40s if you have a natural menopause. And you're probably doing quite well in your career. You're starting to get a grip on who you are and where you are, and then the first phase of menopause comes in, which is separation. And this is just at the point when you're starting to feel, hey world, it's kind of okay here, and whack, the rug gets pulled out from under your feet, and everything starts to go weird. So typically women would start to question, well, who am I anyway, and what do I really want? So it's all those kinds of role and identity questions will come up. Health issues will come up. Anything that you haven't dealt with before is going to bite you on the arse at this point. And this is like this big wake-up call. In relationships that aren't working, will go into crisis. And typically I felt, most of the women that I come across in my practice feel lost and abandoned and very confused. It's a very dark, frightening time.
Yes, I've seen that happen so many times. I'm hearing you say that, go, yes, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone listening to this would go,
yes.
Because we all have our own flavour of doing it, but that's... and that's that sort of wake-up call that something needs to change.
Yeah, it's when you hit that crunch point. Absolutely. I think so many women listening to this who are going through that, or who have, will be recognising that stage. Okay, so then your next stage you had down as surrender.
Surrender. So the surrender is basically, it's more of the same kind of stuff, but the difference is that we stop fighting it. So instead of kind of battling with it and wanting to be normal, there's a sort of acceptance and a surrender into, okay, this is how it is, and the charge can then drop around it, the judgment can then drop around it, and the difficulty can then drop, so that we can start to get curious about, well, what needs to happen here, and why is this happening, and why, if there was a childhood trauma or a more recent trauma, well, why did that happen? And what can I do to repair it? And the possibility of healing starts to happen, I think, in this part in surrender. So it's still hard, but there becomes the possibility of change, there's a sort of a bit more ease around observing what's happening.
And I think you see that process as well in people that have had a major health crisis, and I recognise that from one that I've had myself. When the commentary goes off about, why is this happening to me? What's happening? I don't get it. Okay, something is happening. Yeah. It really does change the energy around it.
Yes, because then the charge drops, and then you have a possibility of thinking, oh, well, I have maybe these options, and this reminds me of that, and
and it gives you that space, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so the next stage, do you want to talk me through that?
Yeah, the next stage is renewal, and this is the point at which it's like March the 1st or late February, when the new shoots start to come through, and you start to see, or maybe the snowdrops start to open, and you start to feel hopeful again, and you start to feel that the sap is rising. So it's a bit like starting to remember. So a woman who came to me, she started to remember the things that she used to enjoy as a young girl. You know, she started to remember about how she used to dance.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and it has the quality of that sort of childlike quality of innocence and joy in it. But it's very fine. You know, obviously we're really busy in our lives, and there's still our external stuff going on. But these 5 chambers are an inside process.
So it sounds almost like the seeds of inspiration for something new starting to come through.
That's beautifully put. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And the thing is that we still don't. Your energy might be coming back. Did I mention in the earlier bit that we're exhausted?
No, you didn't. But
we are.
I think I think that's pretty much the case.
So this is the point when our energy starts to rise, and the trick is really to hold onto the energy at that point, and not to then rush off and start, another career, or, rush off then. And in the next phase, which is vision, again, that is an extension of renewal. That energy starts to strengthen and become stronger, and your vision for the new you starts to become more specific. So you might start to get more, if you're thinking about the dancing, you might start to remember, oh yeah, and it was really the teaching, the showing other young girl, my friends, showing my friends the dance steps that really got me going, and maybe I could help other people. And it's that kind of gathering together, but it's so fragile. It's so, because at this point, for a woman in her late 40s or 50s, if she went and told the postman about her ambition to dance, he would snort, or it would be too...
It gets written off as a midlife crisis.
Exactly.
It
would be
too... Oh, yeah, okay,
it's
whatever.
Too soon. It's too early to go out into the world and share this. It's an inside job, and the whole of menopause is an inside job. It calls us to go inside.
I love that. That sounds brilliant. It's an inside job.
It's an inside. Well, those are Alexandra's words.
And thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you, Alexandra. And she's has lots more workshops coming up in the next year, and a new book, Wild Power.
Ooh, I'm going to keep an eye out for that one.
Really being released in March, so that will be I'll put a link to all the promotional stuff for you, and then you can see that.
Okay, and then what's that last?
The last bit. Yeah, we're on the home stretch now.
Yeah.
Nearly there. At this point, this is called clarity and direction, and that tells you very clearly what is going on. So the energy, again, is getting stronger, and you can really start to see where your path is going to lie. The direction feels clearer, but at this point, it is still really crucial that we don't, we have more energy and we're feeling more full. But it's still crucial that we don't go off and start running around doing stuff. It's still a case of, I like to think about it as filling up a cup, or a teapot pouring into the cup. And the cup has to be full before you can then go off and do anything.
Yeah. And that's true in so many other aspects of life as well.
Yeah. Exactly, and what you're seeing is that this is a description of transition, whether it's health crisis or relationship crisis, or you can use this this framework for all transitions.
Yes, and I recognise the different stages as well from other situations I've been in as well. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much for walking us through that. In your experience with the women you've worked with as well as yourself, How long do you think it takes women to move through that process, properly honouring each stage? I know it's going to vary from woman to woman, but
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on things like how well supported you are.
that's a biggie I've found these days. How good your web of support and your network around you is.
How you are with change, actually. I think that's another big one. So for somebody who is quite rigid and doesn't, constitutionally, some of us are better at change than others. And if you're more of a rigid type person, then it's going to take longer. And it might be more difficult. If you're better at flowing and better at moving through change, then it's going to be shorter. And it could be a year, or it could be 10 years.
That's a very fair way of putting it, I think, actually.
But it's so individual, and it also depends on how you are with your inner world. If your attention is out there all the time, then it's going to be harder. And if you have, a major in the separation part, the major grief, for example, with if you wanted to have children and you didn't have children, then that is going to keep you there, because that is such a big deal, such a big deal.
Yes, it is.
Grief about aging as well. So it depends. It depends.
And I'm also wondering as well, because some women sometimes have to have a hysterectomy, and obviously they pretty much go through the menopause overnight, or sometimes the ovaries are left in, and it suddenly happens 2 years later. I think it's called an ovary attack, when the blood supply suddenly shuts down after the hysterectomy. How have you seen those differences in women?
It's difficult to say, because it depends on the story that they give to the surrounding instance. So what I observe is that we give different meaning to it depending on who we are. So sometimes, although there's one woman I know who saw it as a quick ending, she barely even grieved, and off she went.
And I suppose for some women where it's been a long decision to make, where they've had it for health reasons, and they're more comfortable with it and they've come to terms with it, they might have started that process before the physical process has started.
Because when it's connected to a health issue, then the separation will be involved in that as well, because their world is getting all confused. So it's I realise that you're asking me questions, and I keep saying it depends. But it does, because it's just so different, because the stories we have about ourselves as women, about ourselves as mothers or not mothers, or young women, or hell, aging women. That story obviously has this massive charge for most of us.
Yes.
And it depends on the stories we have about that, and that is culturally bound, but also there's a lot of variation in our families and in our our smaller cultures, our friend cultures. So.
And I love that you say about the word stories, because I've noticed from my own experience how a woman presents her sort of case history to me when I see her, the story she gives me, and the words she uses, and whether she sees herself as empowered.
Yes.
Or whether she's a victim of all these circumstances, which she may genuinely be a victim of lots of different circumstances, but those words and how you view the situation, I've noticed, has a huge impact on their response and their healing outcomes and the way they move forwards. Yeah. So I love the fact that you're using stories as well, because it's so true.
Yeah. Yes, and it's in a way it's the stories that we tell ourselves and how we work through the stories that become part of the healing as well.
Wonderful. So if I was watching this and thinking, This is something I want to work through more.
Mm-hmm.
What can people do? Where can they go next?
The next thing to do is, well, Alexandra at Red School has menopause workshops which run through the year in the UK and across the world, I think, these days. At Love Your Belly, Leora and I have a workshop in July 2017. Yes, and there is the blog on my on Love Your Belly that they can look at too.
I'll put links to those underneath because I do love your blog. It's very valuable.
Actually, one other thing, these 5 chambers for Alexandra are the same. She uses the same 5 chambers in menstruation as you bleed. She uses the same framework, so that will appear in her book as well. So you can look there.
Interesting. And I was just saying to Kate earlier, I've been studying traditional Chinese medicine, and it's now clear to me that the menstrual cycle is in 5 stages rather than traditional 4. So I'm loving the 5 at the moment.
Yes. We're in cycles of 5.
Yes, cycles of 5, 2017. Okay. And just very quickly, your websites, is katecodringtonmassage.co.uk.
Yes, I practice in Watford with abdominal massage. And the Love Your Belly is www.loveyourbelly.org.uk.
Okay, wonderful. And if you're a therapist and you're watching, Kate does some wonderful trainings and mentorings for therapists. The website for that one, because I know it's a different one.
katecodrington.co.uk.
Wonderful. Kate, thank you so much for your time, and I really hope that the women out there who are starting the perimenopause journey are listening to this and they find it really useful, and that they're not alone, and that this happens.
No, you're not alone. If there's one thing that I could add, is that the most powerful force for healing is sharing your story with other women.
Wonderful. All right, well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye-bye. There we go.
Awesome.